Good afternoon, everybody. This is Dave Croft, and welcome back to another very special episode of the 52 Qs podcast. Whether you are brand new to the sync industry, or maybe you have a ton of placements, I promise you, you are in the right place. Today, we are listening. I think we got like 15 Qs submitted for review. I'm doing live Q reviews. We've got a lot of folks hanging out in the chat room already. It is so good to see folks. Oh, look, we got some Full Sail folks in the house. What's good, Rick? What's good, Craig? Chris? Oh man, Chris, thank you for joining us today, man. Yuka, John, we got Mrs. 52 Qs in the house. Martin, Michael, Nick, what's good? Rolf, what's good? Dennis, and lots more folks who are going to be joining us today. So like I said, we've got 15 Qs we're going to be listening to, and I'm going to be giving feedback, specifically feedback like you might receive from a music supervisor or a publisher. So these are Qs submitted by the 52 Qs community over at 52qs.com, and it's free to join. You could join the community, and yes, we have different, subscription tiers and all of that, but this Q review was open to everybody, and so I'm really looking forward to it. We are going to have a fantastic day. What is good, Mark? What's good, Frank? It is so good to be with you today. And so without further ado, what do you say we just launch into it? Like I said, we got 15 Qs that we're going to be listening through, and we are going to listen to all of them. I am committed to listening to all of them, and you might see me kind of go off camera. It's because I'm taking notes. I have a little notebook here that I write notes down. It just helps to keep things going. And we'll talk a little bit about each Q because the folks did submit a little blurb, and we'll go ahead and get started. What is good? What is good, Rogue? What's good, Mike, Seamus? It's really good to have everybody with us today. And so let's go ahead. Shall we jump into it? I say we jump into it. Our first Q comes from Craig, and I know Craig is here. He says, "This is a terrifying process, but have to let other people listen to your music at some point, I guess. This was a taxi brief some time ago, and as we discussed in our last one-on-one session, I'm preparing a playlist of what I hope are viable cues for future placements. This was rejected because I simply didn't read the brief carefully. So this was the feedback from Taxi. What I liked about it, I like the fast arpeggiated motion in the violin. This is a strong feature for neoclassical trailers, but I think it could be improved by that the issue here is the 3-act structure. We need to hear 3 well-delineated sections rather than smooth transitions leading from one to the next. I returned or forwarded this because the trailer structure demands full stops in the rhythmic motion, as we hear in virtually all modern trailers." So folks in the chat, it's for our feedback sessions. My notebook is kind of legendary. If I'm listening and then I disappear, that means I'm writing something down. It's not always bad. Sometimes it's like, this is amazing and I don't want to forget about it. But let's go ahead and let's take a listen. This is Celestial Motion from Craig Gilroy. All right, that was Celestial Emotion from Craig. And by the way, feel free, please give Craig flowers there in the chat. And if you have thoughts that you would like to pass along, by all means, let us know. Let us know in the chat what you think of each one, and maybe if you have any suggestions or anything. This is just like one guy's opinion, right? So I'm not the end all and be all, especially when it comes to taxi and trying to crawl into the mind of the taxi screeners. So thank you, and appreciate it, Craig, for being first. You were, and these are, I'm playing these in the order they were received. So appreciate it. Thank you so much. And so I really enjoyed this. I think this is working really, really well. I do agree with the screeners in that it doesn't really feel trailery at all. It feels neoclassical. Yes, love the string programming. I think that's really, really working, but it doesn't feel like a trailer. The 3-act trailer structure is not there. This feels kind of like a growing, like it's one of those slow burn type cues, where it starts kind of low and just simmers, and you're just slowly cranking up the tension the whole way through, which is great. But a trailer cue, it is not. And it's just coincidence that just last week I kind of unpacked the trailer structure, and I know we've worked together, and I know you're absolutely working on all of that. But the sounds are really, really nice. It starts to getting a little loud kind of here at the end. And I'm a little worried, if I look at the very, very low end, we've got some like 15, 20, 30 hertz kind of flopping around down there. I think we could kind of clean that up. It's probably the reverbs from the double basses are just a little too kind of heavy-handed. And Mark has a really good point. He says, seems more like underscore than anything to me. And that's not untrue. Yeah. And that's one of the things that we're such a challenge for us. We have to put things kind of in cue structure that an editor can take and move apart and break down. And so we have to give them pieces that they can use. So the good news is I think we're onto something here. And again, the string libraries are great. And Frank asked in the chat, what string library was that? So Craig, if you can let us know what string library. But the low end reverb kind of seemed to kind of get away from us. And I wonder, and this was a suggestion from Rogue there, appreciate that, adding a low end and a sub bass, like a sine wave bass underneath can really, really help. I think the title was good. I think the title's fine. Celestial Emotion. It's a little, I would expect something a little more magical, I think, with the word celestial. That there's a fantastic quality to that word, and so maybe I'm trying to think of how many kind of classical pieces have the word celestial in them, but a nice button, nice solid ending. And so I think we got a lot to work with here, And considering how dense your strings are, I think the mix itself sounds really, really, really good. Mark suggests that celestial suggests twinkling sounds. Yeah, there's a magical quality to the word celestial. And I've said this before, that the title has to be the promise that the cue delivers on. And so before a music supervisor and editor ever hits play, they read the title and they make an assumption about what they're about to hear. And so if you can meet and exceed their expectations, then you are in great shape. But if you don't give them what they expect, then they have to kind of work through that. And so they might spend the first 10 to 15 seconds kind of like, well, this isn't what I thought it was. And so at that point, it's not like game over, but you're kind of playing from behind at that point, So having a good title out of the gate could absolutely help that out. And so Craig says the strings were Soundpaint Ad Astra strings. Ad Astra strings, right on. Very good. I think they sounded really, really nice. But Craig, thank you so much for sending that along. I really, really appreciate it. And thanks for the fantastic comments from everybody. Yeah, Mike says that this would work for a TV drama like Succession. And again, one of the challenges of us kind of writing underscorey things that would work for a show like Succession is coming to grips with the fact that a show like Succession has a composer, right? And so the idea is writing a piece of music that an editor would use in the type of show that uses editors in production and library music. But nailed it. Absolutely nailed that vibe. Mike, you're totally right. You're totally right there. All right, let's look at, next up we have Doug. What is happening, Doug? We got several Full Sail folks in the chat. I know Doug is a fellow coworker at Full Sail. Doug, thank you so much for sending this along. Doug says, just finished the cue Riding Low for a library. It's based on the work of guitar duo Hermanos Gutierrez with a Latin bolero vibe, and I'd welcome feedback on its usefulness for sync. Thanks. All right, so here is Riding Low from Doug Knight. That was Riding Low from Doug, and Doug is hanging out in the chat. What is good, Doug? Thank you so much for that submission and for all of your support. Yeah, I dug the vibe of this, man. Has had a definite kind of Santana vibe. I do think the percussion can be a little bit louder, and this is all absolutely working for me. Love the vibe of this. I think we're in really good shape, and I'm like, okay. Love the kind of little doorsy organ sound in the background. But I'm not going to lie, can I just be real with you? I do not like the synth bells. I think they are bringing like unwanted DX7 energy to the table, and it dates it, right? It makes it sound a little throwback, retro, synthwavy, for lack of a better term. I mean, nothing else sounds synthwave about this, but I'm thinking if this were a Santana song, what would Carlos do? You know, WWCD. What kind of instrument would be put there? And that would be my recommendation. Would be go find a Santana song or something that has this. And I don't mean like Oye Como Va, but finding another song that kind of has the same vibe and like the main melody. And I wrote down it could be like a guitar, guitar lead. And I know you have a guitar lead a little bit later. I don't know, maybe a B3 or something. But it feels like, and Martin says, it sounds like you're watching a slideshow or a video featuring actors from an 80s TV series. Yeah, some good suggestion. Mark says that Carlos would play lead. Yeah, you're dialing up a Carlos Santana song. He's not going to lay back and just play rhythm guitar, right? Again, I love the vibe of this. I dig all of the Latin percussion. Again, it could be louder, and Chris likes the guiro. I like the guiro. Yeah, bring the guiro out more. But that lead melody is going to cause you problems, I think. I think it's going to pigeonhole it into a way that's probably not going to find a lot of love. Some good suggestions. Rolf suggests a Rhodes. Rick suggests a marimba. And yeah, those are good suggestions. But I think that's going to cause you some problems. And I love the amp tremolo. This is all absolutely working. We got a suggestion for a nylon guitar. Fantastic suggestions, folks. Appreciate that. Keep it coming. Keep the feedback coming. Again, it's not just the Dave Show. You guys are helping. This is why I put the chat on the screen. And for you folks listening to the audio, I will do my best to say the chat as we go. But yeah, let's find out what we could do to change up that sound. Love the vibe here. Moving into the second part, I like the switch to the drums. I'm thinking that's absolutely working. And I feel like we need a heightening of energy through here. Like, let's see, is it? I'm going backwards. Yeah, it seems a little samey, and I wonder if there's just heightening that emotion, right? We don't want to shift emotion, but we want to heighten the emotion. Some, again, good suggestions coming in. Mark says that the title "Riding Low" doesn't work. Yeah, I agree. It's a perfectly suitable title for another cue. I was expecting just kind of more, I don't know, like lowrider or. Yeah, I don't know. If it were my cue and it sounding Santana-ish, I would probably, make some kind of Santana pun or Carlos, Oye, como Carlos, or do something like that. Just like to say, hey, wink, wink, I know this kind of gives me Santana vibes. Michael suggests you could work in an edit point at the end of that first quiet section. The middle of the second section gets a bit, goes to a more busy or distracting mood. Just my 2 cents. Those are all fantastic suggestions. But it is like not having a heightened energy here at the end. Is it a deal breaker? Probably not. However, I think having an extra gear of energy could absolutely go a long way. So Doug, thank you so much for sending that along. Really appreciate it. And really nice work. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of your guitar work. And we live in the same town. We work at the same company. How are we not collaborated? Let's do that. I would love to work together. Just hit me up, dog. We can grab lunch or something like that. All right. Next up, Oye, there's some good titles coming in. Carlos Bandana. Oye Como Van. Nice. You know me with my titles. I love a good pun. So I'm a big fan of that. All right. Appreciate it, Doug. Thank you. Thank you so much. Carlos Bandana. All right, next up, Timothy. He sends along a cue, and he says, very recently wrote the synth drone instrumental cue for a taxi listing. Something I'm really proud of / happy about is that the main sub-bass drone is something I designed myself. Really loving the sound design sides of things lately. And I tell you what, isn't that really fulfilling? It's kind of like I have made fire. All right, he goes on to say, unfortunately, won't be able to make the live stream live, but so looking forward to listening to everyone's cue in the archive. So the taxi brief was looking for a synth drone instrumental cues for a boutique music library that's distributed by Universal. Please send them well-produced drone instrumental cues that evoke an overall unsettling, moody vibe and feel. Your submissions should have state-of-the-art synths, minimal melodic movement, and stick to a singular idea to keep your cues cohesive. You can have some sparse percussion, maybe some pulsing bass notes, some pads, maybe some sound design elements. Could work to add a subtle sense of forward motion. So let's take a listen to Eerie Enigma. All right, that was Eerie Enigma from Tim Ackerman. Tim, thank you so much for sending this along. I love the vibe of this. Love that you created your own sounds. That's so fantastic. And this is a very, what I call a healthy looking waveform. Put yourself into the minds of the editors, editors working in Premiere or DaVinci Resolve or Final Cut or whatever, before they look at waveforms. And when they're editing, they are visually looking for transients and edit points and places that they can chop and loop and everything. And so even though this is a drone-based ominous tension cue, we can clearly see some transients which are very usable. So if I'm an editor, I'm thinking, okay, there's a spot I can chop, there's a spot I could take out this whole part if I wanted to, and skip right over. And so you have given editors exactly what they need. So kudos on that. That having been said, there are a couple of things I think we could tweak a little bit. The first thing is I think the breakdown here, right around 53 seconds or so, I feel like that needs to go down a little bit further so that there's some real clear delineation of energy. Like we're really pulling the energy back, and we're gonna kind of turn down the burner and then re-fire it up slowly. But I think it's really, really working. The other thing that I would say is going into this last A section, because we kind of have A, B, A, right? That last A section, I wanted to hear more heightening, right? That's my word of the year here, the word, or at least word of the day. The year. There needs to be kind of a heightening of emotion and a heightening of energy here. And I think what we can do is we can add additional layers, so you might have, one layer come in and then 4 bars later, another layer come in and then 4 bar layer. So it gets denser and denser and kind of angrier and angrier. One of the things also that I think we could do is that we could have some high-end presence. Like we don't have a ton, like nothing really much happening over around 2K or so. And so this is where I use, like when I'm doing my synth programming, or if I'm using patches from the Unfinished, Matt Bowdler and all that. One of the things that he does really, really well that I have completely unapologetically stolen, which is using the mod wheel. And when you roll up the mod wheel, what you actually do is you incorporate distortion and saturation. And so this high-end kind of dirt, fire, burning, I don't know how else to explain it, just kind of flares up in the high end. And so I feel like we needed a little bit of that because we had a lot of time where like nothing was really, really happening in much above 2K. I mean, we've got a little bit happening, but the low ends are so prominent that I think having nothing but low end the whole time is probably not the best. And the other thing is that I feel like we did kind of a volume swell here. And instead of just doing a volume swell, what if we had, and I'm here at the top of the queue, what if we had a sound with a long attack envelope and just start with one sound and then layer another sound and then layer another sound, so you get a crescendo through orchestration as opposed to a fader automation. I feel just personally, not only is that more interesting, but it gives a little bit more like terraced dynamics, TERRACED. So it's not just a smooth volume swell, it's slowly building, adds a little bit of breathing into it, if that makes sense. Suggestions from the chat. Jeff mentioned bring down the sustain sounds and bring up the bass pulse. I like that idea, is giving the pulses a little bit more prominent. The only thing I would be careful with is you don't want it to push kind of into light tension territory where the pulses are really, really dominating the conversation. And then the last thing I will say is we had a little bit of delays into our edit point. So you hear boom, 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 boom. You hear those kind of things. I would clean those up, right? And that means that we might need to go in and do some really pesky automation of each individual. Like if the delay is cooked in or baked into a zebra patch or something, you'd have to go in and identify what delay is causing that, and then automate that individually depending on whatever DAW you're using. But yeah, careful of those delays. Love that. Oh, that bowed cymbal. I don't know if I recognize that or not. If so, that's awesome. But yeah, this feels a little formless through here. And here's one of the tricks or one of the challenges, I should say, of these types of cues, is they have to feel kind of formless, but at the end of the day, editors should still kind of be able to perceive the underlying structure that we as a composer add to it, and so that the editor can kind of visually see that. And you've done a really good job, but I think it's the lack of the pulses aren't really there. They're kind of disappeared through the end here, and so I think we could bring that down. Let's see. Mark says, I have 13 sound designy drones in my catalog since 2016, but not one ever been used. Again, this is more type of stuff that gets scored more than used in shows, pulling from libraries. And I have just realized one of mine has the same title, Eerie Enigma. Yeah, I like, first of all, the word enigma is really cool. It's a very, very cool looking Eerie Enigma. Yeah, I think that title works. That title works. I definitely get more kind of ominous than eerie, but we're really splitting hairs here. We're really splitting hairs. Let's see. Some folks love the sound design. Rogue says that the slight drop worked well, and I can see the sharp stop in the waveform. Good sound design. For the final act portion of this, perhaps adding more brass could make the buildup even more effective at intensifying the moment. The only thing I would say is you don't want to push into kind of orchestral territory if like that would be, especially there in the third act. Introducing brass in the third act is like introducing a main character at the end of a movie. And by the time we get to the third act is all about the characters we've introduced in Act 1 and Act 2, kind of resolving the conflict. And so that's my personal philosophy. Craig says, I'd only suggest lifting the pulse more and shortening the edit point, but otherwise, brilliant. Yeah, really enjoyed it, Tim. Thank you so much. Really, really do appreciate you sending that along. Well done. All right, next up, we have Colin. What is good, Colin? Colin sent along Spooky Town. And Colin says, I challenged myself to write a cue a day in the theme of Halloween using techniques from Dave's music production live streams. Well, I'm so glad that you enjoy those live streams. We're kind of in the weeds with my trailer cue. It's going on 4 weeks, but I think the end result is going to be worth it. But this is Spooky Town. We're going to take a listen to it, and then we'll talk about it. All right, that was Spooky Town by Colin Mosley. Colin, thank you so much for sending that along. Really enjoyed this. Some folks in the chat were calling this Elfmanish, and I completely agree. I kind of am getting an Edward Scissorhandy Nightmare Before Christmas vibe out of this. And I loved it wasn't a slide whistle, it wasn't a theremin, but I really liked that sound. I think that works really, really, really well. I will say, watch the intro, the very first, I'm looking at kind of the waveform here, and let me actually maximize my waveforms for as good as you can. I tell you, Logic does a lot of things good, but their waveform view leaves much to be desired. But it feels like it's like almost cutting off. My rule of thumb is leave about 200 milliseconds before the initial downbeat so that it doesn't cut off anything. And it's also kind of soft, you know. Our peaks we're kind of capping out at like -3, but we're way under. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to kind of turn that up a little bit to get us just a little bit closer up to where, and now I'm clipping, but we're going to be okay. So I really, really enjoyed this. One thing to note, the 808 bass is a pitched instrument, and it sounded like we had an 808 kick, which was just camping out on one root note the whole time, because you might be thinking of the 808 kick as a kick drum, but it's not. It is a pitched instrument. And especially in the production music space, the 808 should be supporting the harmony. Yeah, what it ends up sounding like is, you know, a pedal throughout. Now, if it's changing, I can't really hear it. I can't tell it's changing. It might be that it's so low. And I wonder if maybe a little bit more of a purer 808 sound that sounds a little bit more sine wave and not quite so, B string on a 5-string bass. It sounds a little floppy, for lack of a better term. But I really, I do like this. When you come out of the gate, let's immediately, because this is a hip hop cue, and we want to be really careful to make sure that it is kind of hip hoppy all the way through. So one of the things that I do is to establish the fact that this is a hip hop cue, and within the first 5 to 10 seconds, I really need to establish. So I would add snaps to this, or hi-hats, but just like this. Or if you didn't want to do that, halfway through this intro, and then right here, add. Yep, and then we're off to the races here. Yeah, I think this is working. There's a good suggestion from the chat about the drums needing to be brought out a little bit. Now, if we are adhering to kind of verse-chorus commercial hip-hop form, we would probably want to pull some energy back when we introduce the theremin. I think what could work right here, drop the 808 bass and just give me just the drums. So give me a bass on the downbeat, boom, and then just hold no bass, no bass, no bass, no bass, no bass, and then right here, boom. No bass, no bass, no bass, no bass, no bass. Everything pops out, and then we have the melody by itself. And then everything drops back in. So these starts and stops, where hip hop producers, they use these techniques to underscore lyrics and make certain parts of a rap vocal pop out. Well, we can incorporate those as well. Now, so essentially, this section right here, I would kind of switch. I would switch this breakdown kind of section with where we are. I would put it earlier. I would drop the bass and then bring everything else back in full, moving forward from here. And then I love the boo. Oh, that's really nice. The choir is nice. But it does need just a few more of those hip-hop ear candy starts and stops, I think. All right, and a little transition, little riser or a cymbal swell or something. And let's hit a downbeat, right? If you are doing a cliffhanger like ga-ga, then we need to be tons more deliberate with it, so where it doesn't sound like the loop just stops, right? We need a downbeat. And everybody, the bass hits on the downbeat. It creates a sense of closure. If you don't want that, and if you want a cliffhanger button, then we need to prepare that with a reverse cymbal or some kind of transition to say, this is a deliberate choice. This isn't the loop just stopping. And these phrase endings are so important, and they add an element of polish and producer kind of quality to hip hop cues, especially because it's really easy just to kind of collage a bunch of loops. But I think it takes there's a, how to say this? How to say this nicely? Can I be real? Is that okay? In my opinion, cues that don't resolve phrase endings, they sound amateur to me. It sounds like somebody who doesn't understand phrasing and just doesn't think about these types of details. And so I'm not saying you, Colin, are an amateur. I'm just saying that this is a tell for me. And maybe it's because, I teach, how to write hip hop cues at Full Sail, and this is one of the things I bang on about. And anybody who's, I know we've got some of my students, Steven, student in my project and portfolio class in October of last year, and getting into this work. Well, if you haven't already, Steven, join us over at 52 Cues. It's free to join. So that would be awesome. And so, but Steven can can corroborate my story, how I bang on about these phrase endings. And it's just an element of professional detail that I think is a little too easy to miss. Love this, but we need hip hop. Let's bring in the hi-hats. And let's add, can we do a little bit more with an edit point right here? Like maybe even cut it even. Yeah, stop the sound so that it creates a little edit point. But I think this is working really, really well coming to our button. And let's make sure everybody comes to the button party. The only thing it sounds like you have is just a clack and some hangover, but everybody gets to join in on the button party. So Colin, thank you so much for sending that along. I really, really enjoyed that. And I'm glad to hear that the live streams, you're enjoying those. So really, really appreciate it. Got folks saying that this is be very cool with the Halloween, West Coast Wicked, like the theremin. And so really nice done. Nicely done. All right. Next up, we have Mark. Mark sent along, Q says, mine is a hybrid sports rock EDM cue that's looking for a good home. So let's take a listen to Stadium Slam. All right, that was Stadium Slam from Mark Morganshaw. Mark, thank you so much for sending this along. Really enjoyed this. One of the questions that I actually have, and if you're still in, maybe you can help. You mentioned that this was like sports rock EDM. I think this, as in its current form, would work really well for like sports advertising. I could totally hear this like a Peloton commercial or a sports drink or something like that. Now, if we were looking to do sports broadcasting, like you might hear in the NFL or something like that, then I think we probably need to do a little bit of surgery on the form a little bit. Most cues for sports broadcasting are needle drops, where they will just play it from the beginning and go from there. And with that, I think it takes way too long to get to the real meat, because some of these producers and these engineers are dropping them in real time during live, and they're not going to scrub to a certain part. They just hit play, and within the first 5 to 10 seconds, we need to get the ball rolling. No pun intended. Actually, maybe I did intend that pun. But good. Mark is still here, and I know there's a little bit of delay from live to the chat there, so that's totally good. But for sports broadcasting, well, first of all, the riff is fantastic. The guitar tone is great. It has kind of a bluesy rock meets Don Davis, Matrix kind of EDM vibe to it, right? There's some with a sprinkling of like White Zombie kind of in there. I'm hinting notes of Rob Zombie. But let's as it sits right now, I think it could absolutely work for sports advertising. But if you wanted to go into sports broadcasting, I think we need more percussion in earlier. And I kept hearing like a halftime kind of thing, like a boom, ka, ka, boom, ka, boom, ka, boom, ka, boom, ka, boom, ka, boom. And this edit point is too long. It's perfect for advertising, but for sports broadcasting, nope. It's cool. I'm digging all of this. I'm digging all of that. I would say watch your peaks. Our peaks are pushing up to unity, and in some cases they are actually clipping the output bus a little bit. My highest I go is minus 0.2. Most of the time it is minus 1. And I do have a library that wants minus 0.3. And I feel like when we go into this B section, I think risers and do a bigger job. There needs to be more energy into the fact that we are switching sections. We're going into a new section. So we've got, a suspended cymbal. But I dig this. And again, transitional energy, risers, impacts, and all of that kind of stuff. Mark says it's actually a virtual bass. Well, it sounds really, really nice, man. And a big crash. I like that synth pulse. Boom, 2, 3, 4, boom. And at this point, we probably need to be right back in. Let me go ahead and adjust the tempo on this and see if we can't, I wonder if we did that. Because sports broadcasters don't need edit points. They need constant energy. Love this though. I think this is really, really working out. Steven said, you know what? I'm canceling Spotify Premium and use that money towards the neighbor member package. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Jeff says, stellar cue from MMS as usual. Awesome saturation on that bass. Dave is right. Too much buildup for broadcasting. Hit him hard from the get-go. Rick says, I like how it's very remotely, slightly off pitch. Yeah, I think that works. And I would add a halftime drum groove on top of this. And the way that I think of this is like, if you have all these small little scurrying percussion parts, like I think like animals, and then you have these larger animals. I don't know. I'm thinking of the scene from Jurassic Park when all the gallimimuses are running, and then you have like the brontosaurus. That's how I think of it. You can have these larger halftime rhythms around all of this really kind of frenetic energy, and so you can have your cake and eat it too. I think that works really, really well. Mark says, I'm a huge Muse fan. Went to see them live. I can totally hear that. Yeah, that's yep. I'm a big Muse fan too, even though it took me a while to kind of like Muse because his voice is very unique. And at the time, I only had room in my heart for one kind of squeaky singer, and that belonged to Geddy Lee of Rush. But I have learned to have space in my heart for more than one. But Mark, really, really dug this. Stadium Slam. It's a good title. I will say I have seen lots of variants of this type of a thing, but adding some boots claps could help kind of sell that. It's like, I would almost call it like Stadium Energy or Stadium NRG, something like that. It implies a little bit more of the energetic quality of this. But really nice job, Mark. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sending that along. All right. Next up, we have whoops. Let's see. We have Enrico. Enrico sent along let's see. Here we go. A Velvet Moon Serenade written during the current Expedition 52. I'm thinking of trying for a jazzy swing piano album with hopefully live players. Is this okay for sync or too melodious? Well, let's take a listen to Velvet Serenade, and I am going to go ahead and increase the volume here just because it looks like it's a little bit low, so we're going to increase that. But let's take a listen to it, and then we'll talk about it. All right, that was Velvet Moon Serenade from Enrico. Enrico, thank you so much for sending this along. Loved the vibe of this. My master's is in jazz, so I have such a soft space in my heart for jazz music. And I thought the brushwork was pretty good. I'm thinking we're programmed, and there were a couple of spots where they kind of ended unnaturally, and I felt like I can kind of suss out the pattern, but I'm being mega picky here, just because anytime I ever need like stirring brushwork, I will record it myself, and I know that we don't always have that option. One of the things I did not dig about it is I'm thinking of how this might get used, and this kind of stuff can get used of background tinkly music, like from for a scene in a restaurant or something like that. And Paul Croteau, who is a member of the community, also has a great YouTube channel. Check it out. He's gotten placements like in films of that kind of thing. And all that to say, there are too many players on stage, right? Because we have bass, piano, and drums, and electric piano, and trumpet. Right? And so it feels a little, just too many sounds. It's just too much of a sonic texture. When the cue started, I was like, all right, so this is the vibe of this. We have an intro, and then the piano kind of vamps for a little bit. And I'm like, okay, this is going to be like a piano trio. And so I'm good. This is the beginning of the cue. The opening scene. I know we talked last week on the podcast about trailer structure, but we can apply some of these story beats to just garden variety cues. And so this is our opening scene. We are introducing the characters. And by this point, we're a good 20 seconds into the cue. And then boom, a trumpet shows up, which is a good sounding trumpet. I actually like this trumpet, but at 21 seconds to hear what is essentially the primary melodic driver and the melodic instrument, I feel like it's taking too long. We could actually just shave off. Let's see, what's our tempo? 95. So let me line this up just like that. So we have 2, 3, 4, 2. So I wonder if we can just truncate off 1, 2, 3, 4. I wonder if we do this. Yeah, let's see how that sounds from the top. Might need to put a closer. Boom. Yeah. Now we have the primary instrument. It's out. We're not fooled into thinking that we're listening to a piano line. I do think the piano's working here. It's so, like, I have a note here that the piano sounds too kind of tinkly and high, but I like the piano just kind of chilling in the background here. I think this is all working. I would EQ some of the low mids out of the hi-hat. Yeah, I don't know if I would give that to the EP. I would just give it to the piano, because this is like a piano, bass, drums, and trumpet. The EP seems out of place. The electric piano. Now, for the record, I love electric piano. I absolutely love electric piano. Last night, Shannon and I were chilling out on the couch, listening to some Vince Guaraldi electric piano. And yeah, we were like on my phone, and we were just zenning out to it. So either have it all be electric piano or have it all be acoustic piano. But it's well done. I dig it. But I would just like move it to the piano line. Harmonic choices are great. I think we're working well. Let's bring the trumpets too loud here. And this is an example of where like that sounds like it's cut off in the stirring. It just sounds unnatural. And if this was a live drummer, they would be punching the hits. Bah, 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 bah. Nothing huge, right? It's not a big band. They're not doing big band setups or anything. And can we end on a jazzier chord, like a major 7 chord or something? Like just lean into the cliche-ness of this. But I really, really, really dig this a lot. I think it's working really, really well. Let's see. Good to see you, Simon. Thanks for joining us. It's got a very relaxing cue. Mark also says, seems odd to suddenly change to a different piano. Michael says, oh, I didn't realize I should have posted about my submission in the chat. Where can I find that? Well, yeah, we on the event here itself in Mighty Networks. If you sent up a cue and put it into the Dropbox and all of that, then I did ask to provide details in the comments. But as long as I have the sound file, then we can go with that. But Enrico, thank you so much for sending this along. Velvet Moon Serenade, I think, is a brilliant title. Well done. And it absolutely tells us how we should feel, and it manages our expectations. Really, really nicely done. Rolf suggests a major 7/9 chord at the end. I don't disagree. That could work. All right. Next up, we have Dennis. What is good, Dennis? Really good to see you. Dennis was hanging out earlier. Dennis posted, location last spotted. Attention/mystery cue for an album I'm working on, appropriate for murder and mystery documentaries. Tried blending some acoustic instruments with synths and sound design to give it a sort of a rural feel, whilst still having that typical tension sound. So let's take a listen to Location Last Spotted. right, that was Location Last Spotted from Dennis. Dennis, thank you so much for sending this along. Love the vibe of this. And I'm a big fan of your stuff, man. I really enjoy listening to it in our feedback sessions. Looking back to your brief, you said attention mystery cue, looking for mystery documentary. It feels more pensive to me than tense. And I think it's because it's kind of a slow burn cue in a minimalist, and I don't mean minimal instruments. I mean like Steve Reich, Terry Riley, Philip Glass kind of minimalism, where it's just slowly evolving over time. And I think that's really, really, really working for you. I do think that it's, let's see, we're at 62 beats per minute. I do think it feels a little long, and I feel like we were a little too samey in, like I was ready for a change up, kind of a phrase earlier. Like probably just maybe even shaving 2 bars off of this. And can we actually, instead of going bump, 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 can we just do bump, bump, and then hold, and then bump, bump. Yeah, Mark says suggests uncertainty to me. Yeah, I could dig that. And you've done a really good job of heightening the emotion throughout. Right, it's a clear kind of increase. One thing I think the mix overall needs a little zhoosh around 5K or so. Maybe just in the piano. I'm really exaggerating it. Look at your sustain pedal, sustain pedaling through the. All right, so there's a phrase that's working. Again, fantastic increase of energy here. Yeah, I think we're gonna want to pull it back right here, and then into the breakdown right here. Yep. And we're about 45 seconds, but it's such a slow burn. I feel like we're ready for it, and that's working really, really well. And good stereo effects, good stereo field. This little impact right here leading into the final A section felt a little overly aggressive. It's like got a boom, and it's really loud. And if you look at the waveform, you can see it kind of stands out. So I would pull that down just a little bit. Now here it is without the 5K. I mean, this is like 6 dB, but there it is without the 5K. And here it is with it. Without it. Yeah, it just feels a little muddy. And so I would look at that and see if that's going to help you get to where you need it to be. But love the vibe of this. Let's see, anything else that this takes it down to about 240, 2.5. But I'm digging this. And Location Last Spotted is actually a really good, I think that's a good title. I think that title really, really works. Rick says, I like the big booms, and I cannot lie. Mike says, really pensive and cool vibe. Steven says, it sounds like there's plenty of bass and mid-range tones that are complemented by the treble stuff, more positive than worrisome. I agree. This feels more intriguing, like it's an intrigue cue versus kind of a tension cue, but I think it works. In Location Last Spotted, I think that absolutely works. So Dennis, thank you so much for sending this along. Really, really appreciate it. Nice work. Always like hearing your stuff. Okay, next up, Mike Sine sent along Asylum Seekers, and he says, hey, this is a horror trailer cue that was an unsigned taxi forward from a couple years back. I think it will work for the RR Hot brief. And just parenthetically, I think we're going to hear a couple of RR Hot or a couple of horror briefs we're currently running Over in our briefing room, which is a feature of our family plan, we are running a brief for trailer music. And so we are doing action trailers, we are doing feel good trailers, and we are also writing dark and horror trailers. So you're going to probably see a couple of those come up. It's only 1:30 at the moment, but I believe I can get it over the line fairly easily. And if you'll remind, I think we were looking for 2.5, 3 minutes. Is that right? 2 to 3 with 2:30 being ideal. Whoops, and going back. Once I relocate all the samples, I've been through 2 hard drives. Oh, yeah, you've had a rough couple of days, Mike. So I'm sorry to hear that. But let's take a listen to Asylum Seekers, and then we'll talk about it. Oh man, this is freaking me out. This is Asylum Seekers from Mike. The guys in the community know that I am such a wimp. These things really, really freak me out. They get in my head. So really, really well done, Mike. I think this is working fantastic. Can't wait to hear it fleshed out. And horror trailers are so interesting because they get to bend a lot of the rules, kind of like with dramedy cues, right? You get to bend some of your harmonic rules and some of your form and structure rules. And so with that, I still think, like if I'm looking at it, I feel like I can't see the typical straight trailer structure, which admittedly in horror trailer cues gets somewhat obfuscated, but I feel like I can't really see it. And maybe that's because it's not really finished, but even horror trailers should have your 3-act structure with clearly defined edit points between the acts. I wanted an edit point around 45 seconds or so. Because we have a new thing right there. We could have gone boom and just let that kind of sit there and then pushed on from there because I felt like we went in somewhere new. Also, be really careful. The ticks that we have, I think, are really, really effective. But I'm gonna line up my tempo just so the phrases and the bar lines line up. Oh, jeez. I knew I was in for a rough ride when I heard. I'm like, oh, here we go. These are really, really sibilant. They're really, really peaking. They're not peaking like the meters. You've done a really good job of our peaks and our luffs. Really, really nice job. Minus 13 luffs, but minus 1 peaks. But these are really, really crisp, almost painfully so. So I think we need to roll off some of the highs, bring them down in the mix just a little bit. But otherwise, I think this is absolutely working, and I can't wait to hear it finished. Fantastic choices, great sound design elements. I mean, and I know that's your wheelhouse, man. That is your wheelhouse. And so Mike says this was originally for a 130, but I think we can do it. I think we can whip it into shape. And let's hear it. And Asylum Seekers, the title's not doing you any favors, really. Right? It's a good title, but it could just as easily be just a kind of a tension cue, an ominous. It doesn't really. So asylum. I like the word asylum. It looks cool. It's fun to say. Asylum. Asylum outbreak. That keeps the kind of the alliteration on somewhat. Asylum. Give me 10 seconds or 30 seconds while I take a deliberate sip of coffee to see if we can't get another title. I'm still here. Rolf suggested Trapped in the Asylum. Yeah, because asylum seekers could be, are you talking political refugees or are you talking about like an insane asylum? Yeah, it's just a little ambiguous. Asylum outbreak or asylum escape, maybe. But asylum seekers feels a little ambiguous. But otherwise, well done. Really, really enjoyed this, and am looking forward to it. Let's hear it finished out, and we're going to be in good shape. And I think that's going to work really well for that horror brief. Alrighty, next up we have Martin, and Martin sent along Legendary Lifts. And Martin says, inspired by Dave's music production live stream of my uplifting trailer cue, I wrote a cue named Legendary Lifts. I used the same template as Dave as a blueprint. As I learned from this live stream, there is currently a corresponding brief in the family section. I'd like to know if this cue would make it to the second round. If not, what should I improve upon? It's a really good question. And just as a point of clarification, kind of how it works over there in the briefing room is these are briefs that are from publishers that I work with, that I have relationships with, and we have different rounds. So round one is everybody in the family gets to submit, and I provide feedback videos and invite folks into round two. And then round two, if it's still good to go, then we do deliverables. And so we've had a ton of briefs. This is now going on our second year of this. We just did some pop folk lines. We had a last minute call for Love is Blind on Netflix. We just did an investigation, and we did NFL on CBS and dating shows. And so that's what's going on over there. And as far as the different rounds of briefs. Okay. And again, I'm not I'm not pitching you on the family plan or whatever. All right. So let's take a listen to Legendary Lifts, and then we'll talk about it. All right, that was Legendary Lifts from Martin. Martin, thank you so much for sending this along. I really, really liked this, and I think you nailed the uplifting vibe. I love the harmonic choices you're making, and I think it's working really, really well because, the uplifting kind of, it's a fine line because you can easily push uplifting kind of into action territory, and this is what we are... there's an action trailer part of the brief, and then there's an uplifting kind of family movie, a Pixar type of a trailer as well. So I think this is working really well. Here at the top, though, I wanted the piano to be an octave down. By the way, I love the piano melody starting and pickups, right? Boom, 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 boom. I think that's really, really nice, but I wanted it kind of an octave down. It feels a little too tinkly. And then, I would switch these. I would switch those guys. Start with the piano down the octave. I would probably bring the sustain sounds down. And that's just a good rule of thumb. Anytime you have moving lines against sustain lines, the moving lines 99 times out of 100 should take precedence. Yeah, and so that's getting a little too stabby, right? Because if this is the opening curtain and this is the, if we're looking at our beat structure from great harmonic choice going into that major 4-chord, chef's kiss. I almost feel like these are backwards. Yeah, I feel like this feels more like kind of intro energy. And so I wonder if you just wholesale swap it. By the way, transitions like little whooshes and that kind of thing should totally come at phrase points. And I'm gonna back this up just a little bit. It'll give us a little bit of more room so that we can get the pickups. So we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3. So let's keep on going. Let's go to 2, 3, 4. Right, so that's kind of coming in halfway through the phrase. So let's be really, really careful. Love the call and response. I could have used more of that. In fact, that's kind of what if this were my cue, that's absolutely what I would have done. I would have started with the piano an octave down, and then the second time through the intro, that's when I would have kind of brought up the low pads and then done the call and response an octave up. That could be really, really well done. All right. Really good edit points. And somebody mentioned that in the chat. Is this a good example of good stops and buttons using the downbeats? Yes. I mean, except for that whoosh kind of in the wrong spot. Right, yep, good job. And here, remember, we are getting into the call to action, right? This is the fun and games, again, listening to last week's podcast. And we want the ostinatos to kind of be the main attraction here. And so the sustain sounds need to come down and the ostinatos need to come up more. Love the choir sounds. I think that's working really, really well. I haven't heard the major 4-chord. Nice. Oh, nice heightening. Fantastic job. Again, the low end is a little, might be reverbed. It sounds really wide. And fantastic ending. Look at that. Hear how everything resolves all together into a nice edit point. I would not put the boom there. I would just have single piano notes. Because this sounds like somebody hit a mic on accident. And I would go, this feels a little weird. Boom, boom, boom. I would go, boom, 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 or boom, 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 right? All right, and let's connect these, right? So instead of having ba, instead of having that, why don't we have let's see, how do I want to fix this? First of all, let's shave off 2 beats. So we have 2, 3, 4, boom, 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 and connect it. Ja, 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 boom, 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 boom. And the percussion, we need, this needs to soar a little bit bigger here, right? It feels like we're kind of pulling our punches back. Yeah, so the percussion, the ostinatos need to pop out really big here. Jump, 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 jump. Great choir. But the percussion's a little wimpy throughout here. And don't try to get, there's so many parts happening. Don't try to get too fancy with your string ostinatos. Right? Unless you're like John Williams scoring the Superman soundtrack, that generally doesn't end well. Again, fantastic edit point here. Yeah, dig that. And I don't think we need the impact again. If you're going to do that, then make it really soft and round and kind of like almost like a whisper of a sonic boom, as opposed to something that sounds more like a kick drum. And I would not change chords there. I would just keep it on the one chord. Right? Yep. And you probably don't need the whoosh there at the end either. Just a little bing, right? It's your final coda. But I really, really dug this. Now, as far as the mix was a little under as far as our peaks. Would have liked to have seen the peaks be closer to -1. But I think we're in really good shape here. Really, really well done. Martin says, percussion, more density or more volume? Yes and yes. Yep. Yeah, I think by this point, it needs to be, remember, this is the boss battle. This is the finale. This is our characters. You know, if you have action figures, you're bashing them together and they're working through their conflict on, you know, metaphorically speaking. But I think this is really working, man. I think this is really, really working. Again, love the harmonic choices. Really, really love the harmonic choices. And the last thing I'll say is, I think we could have doubled the melody here in Act 2. Even though we've got piano octaves, the piano I don't think is quite telegraphing like how epic it's going to end up. And so this is where like a horn doubling, then a horn, boo, wah, 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 you know, or something like that. And you could sample me singing if you want. But a really good job, Martin. Thank you so much for sending this along. Really appreciate it. The title, Legendary Lifts. Legendary works, lifts. I don't know if you mean elevators. I don't know if you mean, you know, like lifts you put in your shoes, or if you mean like lifting a trophy. So legendary, yes, I would find another L word, legendary leaders, or yeah, I'm not sure exactly what we mean by lifts, but I think there's a better title in there. All right, next up we have, which I'm assuming, Michael, is this yours? This is I'm Your Vibe, I think. Is that your cue? Let's see where, if you did add this. There we go. All right. Excellent. So this is I'm Your Vibe. It's for a taxi listing. Lots of modern pop songs with female vocals focused on finding positive, uplifting songs that would work really well in TV commercials. Just want your feedback on how this works for advertising. Well, thank you very much for sending this along. And let's take a listen to it, and then we will talk about it. This one is called I'm Your Vibe.
I'm your vibe. I'm your vibe. I'm your vibe. I'm your vibe.
right, that was I'm Your Vibe from Michael. Michael, thank you so much for sending this along. Really, really appreciated this. This was super interesting, man. If not a little experimental, right? It feels kind of like the audio equivalent of like an abstract piece of art, right? That has all these different shades of meaning. Let's look back at your brief. You had mentioned that modern pop songs with female vocals focused on finding positive, uplifting songs that work well. And I'm not getting positive kind of uplifting vibes. You know, I feel like female pop vocals is probably wanting something a little bit more of a like Swifty Ariana Grande vibe versus this.
I'm your vibe.
And it's in a minor key, boom, boom, the kind of bluesy riff.
I'm your vibe. I'm your vibe.
Yeah, I feel like this would work really well on like a commercial that like for like Motorola, or commercial for like a car commercial or something like that. I think it could work for sync, but again, I can't crawl into the minds of a screener. But my guess is probably going to be a return. And Jeff mentioned a word that I think is descriptive. He says it's a bit sensual, and that's spot on. Yeah, there's something, I don't know. Yeah, sensual is a great word. It's not like overtly sexual lyrically or anything like that. But there's like a, ooh, come here. There's that vibe. No other way to say that. But it probably will be problematic. Now, if they were looking for like kind of experimental, kind of like retro future, it reminds me of something I would imagine Americans think that Germans listen to in clubs. Does that make sense? Do Germans actually listen into that? And maybe I have sprockets. Am I old? Does anybody remember sprockets from SNL? You know, this is a time for we dance, you know, and they're like, right. And they're doing it kind of tongue in cheek, but there is an element of truth to that. And so I would worry about that. I think you've done a pretty good job with our form and structure, you know, but it is really loud. You know, we're coming in really hot and heavy. We're pushing into the -6 lufs. Peaks are okay, so we're not actively clipping, but it is pretty hot. And this area, right around 100 hertz, is just way overly represented here. Okay, now I know we have some authentic Germans in the chat. Can you Germans confirm that that this is music that might have been played? Rolf says I did, but that's long time gone. Okay, so it's not that off base. It's not. Rick says Germany pre-house music era. Rick says also the claps, while they do fit in the mood, I might have found a different sample. So yeah, acid housey. But this 100 hertz area absolutely needs some taming, you know, and we can kind of freeze it there, and you can see the 100 hertz range is coming at like +6 over unity, whereas the rest of it is kind of around unity, and so it's way overrepresented. So I would be careful there. Manuel says, as a German, I'd say maybe yes, maybe has some Kraftwerk vibes. Rolf says, but we prefer more techno style. I appreciate that. I appreciate the Germans chiming in. But I think this is really cool, and I think it could find a home somewhere. It needs some mixing TLC, but it's probably going to be a return, I would imagine. Now, if you got $5 and you just want to know what they have to think, then please, by all means, go ahead and send it up. It could work out really, really well. But I dug it. And I appreciate you sending that along. Let's see if there's anything else. No, like I said, I think mix and overall vibe. One question, and Mark said, a good vocalist. One question I have is that vocals that, or are those vocals that you found, or is that like a splice sample kind of a thing? Because if it's a splice sample, I think would probably be in trouble. It's Michael says it's my daughter. Well, brilliant. then never mind anything I was going to say about like using, because it's fantastic. I love the vocals are so good. I thought they were a sample, not because it's repetitive or whatever, or sounds chopped up, but because it sounds super high quality. Yep. And Rick says, I'm saying that as a person who grew up in Detroit and makes techno, but more the Berlin style. Yep. Well done. Thank you, Michael. Really appreciate you sending that along. And I could absolutely see that being used for an ad campaign for like a phone. I don't know why I just get like a phone. Yep. Michael says they'll be elated to hear that feedback. Yeah, it's great. The vocals were fantastic, and the EQ on the vocals, right? It's really, really well put together. And here's what's even more important. It's so simple. I'm your vibe. I'm your vibe. And you sent along the lyric sheet. Let me see if I can't pull it up, because I just want to say these lyrics out loud, because lyrics can get really silly when you just say them out loud. Oops, give me 1 second. But let me get there. The lyrics were, I'm your vibe. 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 They all try. They all try. I know why. I know why. I'm your vibe. I'm your vibe. I move you. I groove you. I've got the scent to soothe you. That's a really good line. You know why. You know why. Look in my eyes. I'm your vibe. Right? And so, but it's in my ears, guys. I'm your vibe. And it's sticky and kind of hooky, the same way that like I'm too sexy for for the catwalk or whatever, right? That's yeah, it's sticky. That's a sticky hook. That's a really good thing. Just probably not right for that brief. And Jeff says, I thought it was a vocal sample too. Very well done. Rolf says, working with your daughter is freaking good. Kudos. And Mark says bass needs some cleaning up. The mix is a bit muddy downstairs. Yeah, it's that 100 hertz peak, which is just like, get out of my way. And 100 hertz does not play nicely with others. They don't play well. They would probably fail kindergarten if 100 hertz was a human. They would not play nicely. All right, moving on. Let's look at something from the Reskies. What is happening, Michael and Yuka? Rick says, so sexy it hurts. Yeah, I was getting, Kraftwerk meets Right Said Fred. There it is. There it is. All right. The Reskies said, hi, everyone. This is Michael, and this is a drumline cue, part of an album I'm doing for a library. I'm doing it myself, and I've done 2 already and wanted some feedback. This was all done using Spitfire Originals Drumline Library. All right, so let's take a listen to Back to Snare 1. Oh, I like that title. I like that title. All right, that was Back to Snare 1. Michael, that was fantastic. Really, really dug that. Some great drum programming there. Of course, I I was in drumline. You know, I marched in high school and I marched in college. Even did a little stint with Carolina Crown. Very little. Didn't end up marching. Didn't go to season with them, but I was on the A line. Anyway, this passage there at the end, like I'm mentally trying to like figure out like how would you play that? That was so good. Chaka 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 chaka. That was really nice. Oh, that is either impossible to play or that's like a dude blowing heat. Oh yeah, that got me excited. As far as a mix goes, I would bring a little bit more highs out of the snares, and I know that because the originals drumline, which is really really solid, believe it or not, it's really good. I usually layer that the drum sounds from the originals with that sound drumline, which is also really good, and those blend really nicely together. But I do feel like, again, a kind of a 5K boost, specifically in the snares. And the other thing I would recommend is kind of what the tenors are playing. The tenors are the quints or the quads or the did I call them sexes? I don't know. But I feel like the tenor players live somewhere in between the tuned bass and snare drum. And so tenor players, they're like, tenor players are super laid back, and they are the ones who are usually just like chill, and they're like blah, blah, and they're like doing all of this stuff, and they're moving and they're crossing over. So I feel like the tenor players don't have enough to do here, and so boom, 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 and so moving up and down the tenors, I think, would be a little bit more realistic, and the tenor players would appreciate it. As it is right now, they kind of feel like they're playing the kick snare relationship in there, and I think it could be a little bit more pronounced. The other thing is because it's just the drum line, can we give like sections that feature different aspects of the drum line, even if it's just a couple of bars? And that having been said, I feel like I kind of lost where we were in the form. And by the time we came around back to it, I think we were in good shape. But like right there, the tenors should go. So instead of da da da, they should go bip bip bump, bip 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 bip, or something like that, right? Yeah, and I would go a crash cymbal on the downbeat there. Oh, nice. And then and so have the beep beep boop boop boop, but like yeah, just lean into the pitched basses, lean into the tenors. So it's getting busier, boom. And then into kind of a breakdown, not really a breakdown proper, but this would be a good opportunity. Sorry, I realized I just stopped talking. I started listening. Yeah, I'm just thinking here in this section, is there a way that we can really differentiate it from the earlier sections? And this is where, and I know it's called Back to Snare 1. Again, perfect chef's kiss of a title. But like, can the tenors take that? Boom, 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 boom. Yeah, just something to think about, because, and I am splitting hairs. Is anything that I'm suggesting a make or break for the cue? I don't think so. I think this is all absolutely working, but really well done. And that title, bro. Yep, nailed the title. So thank you very much for sending that along. Back to Snare 1. Yep, that's a good title. Yeah, I'm jealous of that title. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I'm jealous of that title. I wish I had that title, but you have it. And so, but here's how my mind works. The word snare, and I'm going to write this down. The word snare can be substituted for square. So if I have a percussion cue, I can use a term or a phrase that includes the word square and substitute snare. And I'm just going to tuck that away for future Dave to work through. So yes. Mark says, I like this one. Could use some more snap and punch in the drums. Yep, for sure. For sure. Let's see, anything else? Yuka was in the chat. Yuka says, let's bring Yuka up. Usually we write together. I lost it. But drumline, I am not. My only contribution of this cue was the title. Well, Yuka crushed it. Absolutely crushed it. All right. And just a little bit of trivia. I met Mrs. 52 Q's in marching band. She was a flag girl, and I was on the drum line. Yep, twirling her little flag. Actually, Shannon was a badass rifle. Her big thing was rifles, and she was an amazing rifle twirler. What's the right term? I know flag girl feels a little pejorative, but what a rifle color guard? I know color guard is. Somebody help me out here, Shannon. If you're still hanging out, let me know, because rifle girl doesn't sound right. And by the way, do they still allow like rifles in college? That seems problematic. All right, but Shannon's gonna let me know what rifle twirlers are officially called. And in the meantime, Simon sent along Chill of the Hunt. He says, I've been developing a nature documentary album called The Hunt, Pause. I've been listening to it in the mastermind, and it's really, really good. Really, really good. All right, back to it. The aim is to create expansive orchestral arrangements incorporating hybrid elements similar to those in BBC productions here in the UK. With this cue, I focused on making the string sections sound cold and icy, utilizing aleatoric techniques to evoke the feelings of emerging from a blizzard. And look at that. Oh man, look at that that thumbnail artwork. Perfect. See, you are managing my expectations. Shannon says, I don't know what flag what rifle folks are called. Honor guard, rifle drill. No, because this is like color guard and marching band. So honor guard would be like with the actual flags versus like flag twirling kind of thing. Anyway, so this is Simon with Chill of the Hunt. Oh. That was Chill of the Hunt, another fantastic title. Really, really fantastic title. Loved this, man. You know, I'm a huge fan of this album, and I just predict that it is going to get lots of love. In fact, if you're watching right now and you're a library publisher or whatever, I would imagine many of these cues are available. And by all means, please, you can email me, dave@52cues.com, and I can point you and connect you to those folks, or you can reach out to them here in the 52 Cues community. Anyway, this album is really, really nice because here's what I love about it. First of all, Simon's orchestral programming is top shelf, but also there's a very clear focus for this album, right? There's a very clear concept, and each cue on the album delivers on that concept. So Chill of the Hunt, I think works fantastically. I would watch out. I know that we were saying that we were kind of really leaning into like the brittle strings. I feel like by the time we got into our third act, because this is kind of following trailer structure, right? By the third act, I was wanting more like mid strings to really come to the table, starting to sound a little screechy. Do watch the low end. We've got some low end rumble down here. And what I think the problem is that we might have some sub bass, which is fantastic, like a synth bass, but also we've got some low percussion and everything. And it's just creating this kind of this low end rumble. By the way, love the third act harmonic shift. But yeah, it just feels a little too dark and kind of rumbly throughout here. And part of me wanted some big 2s and 4s, some big backbeats. Right? Kind of in a Man of Steel kind of way. If you've ever checked out the Man of Steel soundtrack by Hans Zimmer, he brought in like 12 drummers. Was it 12? And if it was 12 drummers drumming, I don't think that was on accident, but anyway, there's some accidental Christmas caroling for you. But it just needs be a little bit bigger. But I really, really dug this a lot, and I think it's really working. Love these edit points. That was really nice. Watch the sustain sounds through here. Remember, yeah. And I'm going to do a low volume test, right? If I can't clearly determine like what I should be listening to, then we're in trouble. So this is really, really soft. I'm going to back it up a little bit. Hear how the low strings and the ostinato are kind of fighting each other? They eventually settle in. That literally like gave me chills. This is so cool. Boom. And can we get a crash or something there on the downbeat? Some piatti. Yeah, just some low-end cleanup to make sure that everything is taken care of there, but well done. And the title is fantastic, Simon. Nice work. Simon says, I think it's my busy bass drum. Yeah, probably. You know, and that's something I think that we've talked about in the mastermind is just making sure that your bass drum, it's kind of like a kick drum versus like a Grand Casa big 32-inch or even a 36-inch concert bass drum. Yeah, it's like a big brontosaurus, right? It can only move so fast. So if you try to make it too busy, then it just flops all over everything. But Simon says, thanks to Enrico for suggesting having that bass by itself. Really, that's great. Brilliantly done. Really, really nice work. All right, next up we have Jeff Hargrove. Jeff says, hi all, an action trailer entitled Battle Lust for the RR Hot Brief. So let's take a listen to Battle Lust. freaking Jeff. Oh my gosh. Jeff, I actually had an emotional reaction halfway through this. Even though I know it's an action trailer, blah, 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 but this is so good, Jeff. The moment, like this right here, this middle section, the transition into Act 3 is inspired. And this is like riding a roller coaster. Like, where are we going? Where are we going? And then bam. I got chills all over again, Jeff. Well done, man. Really, really, really well done. The only little super nitpicky thing is here in our coda, right? Here in our return, there's a click. Yep, hear it. There's a little click. It's probably Omnisphere or something like that, but this is working so well. The title is perfect. This is so well executed. I love everything about this. The only thing I would also say is here at the beginning, I feel like the sustain sounds could come down until we start building up into the edit point. Like I would start like this. That reverse guitar. Oh, Jeff. Well done. No more notes. No more notes. Yeah. Mark says RX will get rid of that click. Well, let's find out. Let's find out. Let's open up some RX and see if we can't find that click and where it is in the mix. So let's see what we got. We are here kind of at the end and the click. It is not liking what I'm doing here. I think I'm zooming in too much. Yeah, and you can actually see it in the waveform, right? You see that little spike all the way up through the frequency. Let's see if it will clean it up. Let's do into a spectral repair, spectral replace. Oh, it lessened it. This is gonna butcher it. So you might need to do a little bit more forensic work on that, but I think it's worth exploring. But it might be easier to just figure out what's causing it, if it's an effect or something like that from Omnisphere. That's my guess. Oh, Mark suggests the D-click tool. Good. That's a fantastic idea. Really good idea. Rolf says, I like the Act 4. I'm thinking you're maybe the kind of the coda, because if you watched my podcast last week, we have kind of an Act 1, an Act 2 with an Eye of the Storm, right? And then we have our Act 3, and then we have our kind of our coda. And this Eye of the Storm can be a down section. It can be this kind of this roller coaster ride. It's like we're right at the top of and it floats longer than you think it should. And that is catnip to an editor. Absolutely. Really well done, Jeff. Thank you so much for sending that along. And yeah, that's a home run, dude. That is a freaking home run. All right, next up we have Manuel. I know Manuel's hanging out with us. Manuel says, I intentionally didn't listen to any of you guys' cues yet, so that I'm delusional enough, not discouraged to upload one myself. Anyway, here's some background info. Wreck a Ton started as a kind of experiment some time ago in the Expedition 52. Just time out. Expedition 52 is a year-long composer quest that we've been doing, whereas each week there is a kind of a topic that we talk about, as well as an optional writing brief. We'll be rolling out the next Expedition 52 in January, and you can't sign up for it now, but it is a weekly, there's weekly encouragement. There's a really fantastic kind of sub-community happening over there, and we do weekly radio check-ins or like weekly live streams. And so anyway, that's what Expedition 52 is. It's come up a couple of times. All right, moving on. The question was essentially, how would an epic orchestral hip-hop track suitable for sports broadcast and the like sound if I were to replace the core with reggaeton instead? The result is silly, but kind of works. So let's take a listen to reggaeton, and then we'll talk about it. All right, that was Reggaeton from Manuel. Great title, Reggaeton. I think that's working really, really well. By the way, Stephen, thank you so much for swinging by. I know you got to bounce out, but yeah, looking forward to working with you. So Manuel, I think the experiment works. I think kind of big, brassy, epic hip hop meets reggaeton, I think could work. That said, I think we need to bring more kind of modern, more kind of pop EDM type reggaeton, because as it stands right now, it sounds like timbales and it sounds like, a surdo or whatever. I think we should use splice loops or whatever, so it's more of an EDM interpretation of reggaeton, because as it is right now, I don't think the percussion holds up to the density, the weight, if you will, of the big brass and everything. One of the things that makes big epic hip hop cues work is like big taiko and all these big giant drums and big 808s and everything. And so the drums just feel just a little wimpy, if I could say that. But if we had if it had more energy, a little bit more of a modern sound. Right, yeah, this just really feels, Yeah, I'm not sure the percussion holds up. Also, going into the breakdown section here, in my experience, at least for CBS football, they don't like these big kind of protracted percussion breaks because, like I said earlier, they kind of needle drop it, and they need relatively consistent energy throughout, right? And so I feel like this kind of breaks down a little bit too much with little timbale solos that I think would step on dialogue and be distracting. I like the horns and the blats and everything. and going into the final button. Bum, 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 bum. Yeah, doing a kind of a clever. I don't think that works. And also, watch out. We have like this bent, like slow bend, and then it finally pitches up. That might prove problematic. I'm going to adjust. I'm going to see what that would sound like if we attached our button to the end, right? So let's see what that would sound like. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so it feels like it's a half step off, and it may, if it's a pitch bend thing, then I think we need to get out of that half step down earlier, so that it can resolve to that tonic. I'm like, pull up, Tink, pull up, man. You're gonna crash out, right? So, I really like the vibe of this, and I think the experiment is a success. We just need to bring a little bit more aggressive and modern reggaeton samples and reggaeton loops and stuff to the table. That's what I would do. I would just go to Splice, find some reggaeton loops, and start kind of layering them and chopping them up, and maybe pitching them and all that kind of stuff. So it's not just wholesale copy and pasting. But I dig this. I dig this a lot, man. Really well done. And reggaeton, I like that too. I like the kind of the tongue-in-cheek nod that is. All right, well done. You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Thanks for sending that along. And then finally, last but certainly not least, Rolf submitted a track. Rolf Schild, what is happening, Rolf? Rolf is fresh off of his community gathering that he hosted at his house there in Germany. And so I know we had several folks from the 52Qs community meet up with Rolf. We had folks from Switzerland. We had folks from Sweden, folks from Germany. We had somebody from Czechia. And so I hope, Mikhail, I hope I'm not it's Czechia, I think, right? Or Czech Republic. Anyway, you can let me know when you watch the archive. Anyway, Rolf hosted folks, and so that was so wonderful. And Rolf says the gathering was a blast. And we be on the lookout for the our email newsletter. I'm sure we are going to be posting up some pictures. All right, so this is we're ending on a scary note. I'm worried, Rolf, but let's take a listen to Pit of Oblivion. All right, that was Pit of Oblivion from Rolf Schild. Rolf, thank you so much for sending this along. The good news is it wasn't all that scary. And I think that's a good news because horror trailers, like I said, we get to break a lot of the rules and bend a lot of the rules. And I think this is a little bit more standard kind of fare. It's not quite so, stabby, stab, stab, right? It feels a little bit, this feels like a trailer for like something like, I don't know, like a psychological thriller versus like a paranormal ghost movie or monster movie or something like that. That having been said, I thought the sound design elements were fantastic. These strings, these kind of modern string techniques. I would love to know if you can let me know what string library that was. It was so cool, so well done. But I don't see your typical trailer structure. Kind of like when we looked at Mike's earlier today. Sorry. Mark says Dave would call it Pits of Oblivion, right? Actually, I would call it Pits of Despair. The Pit of Despair. The Pits of Despair. That's absolutely what I would call this because it's all Pizzicato Street. Anyway, yes. In fact, Rolf, if you don't use that, I'm going to use it. Pits of Despair. Anyway, we need to see our typical trailer structure. Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. As it sits right now, it feels more like a modern tension cue, not a trailer cue. And we need to bend it into trailer structure. Act 1, Act 2, starting off kind of soft. I need to be able to visually see where the act breaks are. And I feel like we kind of had an act break kind of in here, but there were no clear edit points. There were no clear stop downs. And that alone would be problematic to be on the album. Rolf says the strings were restrung. Ooh, is that a, I'm guessing that's a sample library. That's really cool. I'm gonna make a note of that. Don't mind me. VST Restrung Volume 1 from Fallout Music Group. Yep, that's not that expensive either. Well done. All right, so let's look at that because that's fantastic. All that really aleatoric, strange, sound designy string things, I think really good. So the big takeaway, first of all, it is kind of loud, right? Also, there were a couple of spots where some resonances popped out of the mix. Like right here. If we pause it, we can see that we have a 1K resonance, and then we have about a 1600 resonance popping some like 9 dB over unity. So we got to tamp those things down. I feel like those are really popping out of the mix, but I love the energy of this. I love how it's not just, it's not all kind of sound design, found sounds, aleatoric stuff. There's very clear structure. And I think this is going to complement this horror album really well, but we've got to get it into trailer shape. Otherwise we're in fantastic shape here. Really, really nicely done. I think that's all the notes I really have. That's all the notes I have. Excellent. So that is going to do it for us. By the way, if you found that helpful, those feedback, couple of things. First of all, you can order up your very own feedback video. You can, there we go. You can go to ismycueready.com and you can order up your very own feedback video. I think they're like $19 a pop. It's a 15-minute feedback video. And so it's something that I do. And also, this type of feedback I do twice a week for our family subscribers. They submit their cues and I give a feedback in an open Zoom session just like this. And we give feedback to each other, and it's really, Really fantastic. And so if that's something that you found helpful and you enjoyed this, then head over. Why don't you think about subscribing to 52Qs either as a family subscriber or a friend subscriber? You can get access to our monthly workshops, or a neighbor subscriber, you can get into our live streams. And so thank you guys so much. We really appreciate you. Thanks for hanging out with me this afternoon. I could name everybody who's here, but I think it's a lot. It's a lot. Let's see. Mark says, I'm very impressed with the quality of everyone's submissions. Amazing work, everyone, from Doug. Ms. Jujubee says, the cues were stellar. Dave's incredibly detailed and insightful feedback, along with the helpful feedback and comments from everyone else, was extremely helpful. And you're very welcome. Thank you guys so much. And we'd love to have you. Why don't you join us? And even if you don't want to, pay for a subscription, join us for free at 52qs.com. But that's going to do it for us. I hope you have an amazing week. And remember that the universe has amazing plans just for you. Until next time, peace. The 52Qs podcast is copyright 2024 818 Studios, all rights reserved. The music played on the podcast is copyright of their respective owners and is used with permission and for educational purposes only. For more information, including joining the community or becoming a member subscriber of 52Qs, head over to 52qs.com.